Hi, gratitude seekers, and welcome to a new episode of the Gratitude Podcast. Today, I have a really interesting and special guest for you today, and she is a best-selling award-winning author published by BT Young Books. Her name is Debra Kasowski, and I managed to say it wrong, even if I said it right before. So it's Debra Kasowski. All right, it's okay right now. She has been endorsed by thought leaders like Jack Canfield, Pat Monsieur, Deborah Halperin Poneman, Peggy McCall, Sean Duperan, Charmaine Hammond, and Teresa de Grobois, if I'm saying it correct, just to name a few. So I will let Debra tell you more about herself, and most probably she will pronounce the names much better than I did.
Thank you for having me on the show. It's wonderful to be here.
All right. So I know that you've written a few books by now, right?
Yes.
And you're also doing a podcast. Actually, I've listened to one of the episodes of Debra's podcast. It was on gratitude, and we had a story that's kind of resembles. So her story resembles my story from my own life, and I find this amazing. Can you share a bit about the story that you shared on your podcast?
You know, and I can't remember the exact story offhand, but there's so many things to be grateful for. And the first thing that comes to mind is I had a school teacher that many people thought was very strict and they avoided her. And I learned so much from that woman. And just a few years ago, when I was introduced to the 365 Thank Yous by John Krolick, a year of simple acts of daily gratitude that changed my life. And when I read that book, I thought, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to write people thank yous about how they've impacted my life. And this teacher, I wrote and told her specifically. So when we say thank you, we need to be really specific about what we're saying thank you for. So I wrote about how she opened my mind to learning, how she made an impact on my life, and I mailed it to her. Now, my parents live in the same town, still in the same area, and they ran into her grocery shopping, and she went up to them to tell them how special their daughter was and what an impact it made on her life. And she actually sent me a thank you card back. Wow. Because in all of her years of teaching, no one had ever thanked her. No one had ever said thank you and that you made an impact in my life. Because you can imagine, grade 4 till where I am now is a long time ago.
Totally.
And she said tears were streaming down her eyes to know that someone thought she was important, that she made an impact. And I don't think we tell people enough about how much of an impact that they make on people's lives. And there's just so many things to be grateful for. And I apologize. I didn't go back and listen to the episode or look at my show notes because I was like,
no problem.
Whatever comes up for me that day is what I need to share with your audience about, because there are so many things that I am grateful for. And there's big situations and there's little ones.
Totally. And I love this story because it somehow completes the story that I've written about. It's I think is the first article that I've written on my blog on gratitude. So my story is about my brother, who is a university teacher, and while we were at a family dinner, he said that he received an email thanking him for his work as a teacher and for the inspiration that he gave to a student. And for me it was like, okay, it's great that you received it, but I'm sure you receive a lot of emails like this. And I was very like astonished when I found out it was after 15 years of teaching. It was the first email of this kind that he received. uh,
Wow.
yeah, so I think this somehow completes your story, because
Yeah.
it might have been the same kind of situation where um, after all the years of teaching and trying to get the best out of her students, she received a thank you email, or you actually wrote.
Yeah. And when you think about it, teachers are some of the most impactful people in our lives. From, being little as a child, your parents are your first teacher. But as you grow, you get exposed to all these other teachers. They're kind of like messengers here to share with you these different lessons that you need to learn and then to go out in the world. And by not going out and talking to people or letting them know the impact, sometimes they're going through the world wondering if they matter. They might not say it out loud, but in their heads, I think all of us
Exactly.
have a time where, am I making a difference?
Exactly. And that gives people a sense of purpose, and sees that their work is actually appreciated. And I think we all yearn for that, and it's a very important aspect for our lives to have meaning.
Yes.
So the first thing that I would like to talk with you about is, if you have a certain quote on gratitude that you love and you want to share why you love it.
I have two that I found for you that really
Perfect.
resonate for me. And I was thinking one of them might be a little bit more used than others because it's Oprah Winfrey. But be thankful for what you have. You'll end up having more. And if you concentrate on whatever you don't have, you'll never, ever have enough. And when I think of this quote, it really puts into perspective no matter what's going on in your life. And I have a nursing career background. So I've been there when a baby's taken their first breath, and I've also held the hand of someone who's going on to their next journey. And being able to be a part of that and being part of the life in between, it's one of my missions to make sure people are living completely full. And we can be grateful for simple things that of being able to breathe. So if you've ever had any time that you've struggled to breathe, or you've had a bad cold, or chest infection, or anything like that, or have asthma, or you can really appreciate being able to breathe clearly. If you closed your eyes and walked around your house and then opened them and realized how much you can see, or you can touch and feel, and the foods, like I'm a little bit of a foodie, so being able to taste and really savor the food. So it's all of these simple things that really help absorb us and get us pulled in to really enjoying life. And as you start going and counting these things of what you're grateful for, the list can be endless. And the other quote that came to mind, which totally resonates, is a grateful heart is a magnet for miracles.
Wow, beautiful.
And when you're grateful, you will start seeing, and when you're paying attention and you're expressing gratitude, you will have events come to you and opportunities come to you like a magnet. And it's very exciting because you'll never know where these things came from, but it's from your own energy that you put off, and how you share yourself with the world, that you see everything in a positive light. And I'm not saying that, you have rose-colored glasses, you're not paying attention to the other things in the world, but it's all what we focus and put our attention on that feeds and reflects in our lives.
Exactly. I think these quotes are wonderful, and the way you explain them is really really beautiful. But the question is, what do we do when it's hard to be grateful, when things are really uh, making it a challenge for us to be grateful? What do we do then?
Yeah. And I was thinking about that last night as I was preparing for the podcast, thinking, there's been times that I think I've been in a place that you forget to be grateful. You get into a place of being a workaholic, and you're so focused on your work that you want to get everything just right. It's that perfection piece, and you want people to notice your work, and sometimes events don't turn out the way you want. But the biggest thing that I always, from Don McGill Ruiz, and the Four Agreements, it always reminds me that nothing in this life is permanent. So even when we're having a good day, it's temporary. If we're having a bad day, it's temporary. But if we're taking actions and trying to shift to that, and not trying, I cancel that word. When we are shifting to make different choices, to be in a state of gratitude, our attitude changes toward the world. So if you're having a bad day, get out of your own space. If you're in the office and things aren't going well, it's a sign. These are all signals to say, you know what, get out of this space, go for a walk, be in nature, connect with a friend, express yourself, give yourself a limited time to be in self-wallow, I like to, or pity, and say, okay, you got 5 minutes, get over it. Because you can change your state at any time by changing the way you think and starting to look for things that you're grateful for. Sometimes it's easier than others. You can be in a tragic event and it can be really difficult to look for those silver linings in the clouds or something positive. But whether you can have that thought alone is something to be grateful for, that you can actually think about it.
Yeah, I totally agree with you, and I think that it's incredible how we can change from one moment to the other, and how we can shift our perspective on how things are, and to choose to be grateful even if things might be hard on the outside. And sometimes for some people these are the times when they find gratitude.
Well, one of the things, if I just may add here for a moment, is when you're in a tough space and you're finding it hard to be grateful, one of the other things besides, going out into nature and doing other things, focus on other people. Focus on what you notice about them. Give what you want to have for yourself, that feeling of gratefulness. Be grateful and notice what other people are doing. And when you go outside of yourself and see what's going on in the world, and seeing how other people are having struggles of their own, and you took a moment to stop the world to acknowledge someone, all of a sudden that's what really shifts you, is because you took notice of someone else versus focusing on keeping the focus on yourself. And several years ago, it's about 9 years ago now, I started a shoebox project. It was something that I had on my bucket list, that we sent shoeboxes to Ukraine for children to open. And I'm in Canada, so I wanted to see the children open the boxes. I wanted to see how small things in a box could excite these children. So we started 9 years ago, and it was phenomenal. It was beyond my expectation. But when I heard children, saying, this is the best thing I ever wanted, how did you know? And the following years, we started feeding them and saying, what, can I save this to eat for later? And we'd be like, why? Sure, of course you can. But they're like, well, this might be the only meal we have today. And those moments help me, when I'm focused on other people, make me realize how grateful I am to be able to eat, for them to be excited about a toque that they put on their head that I, sometimes take for granted. I'm going outside in the cold, I put on a toque, and you don't think anything of it. So it helps you to take stock and slow down and really paying attention to the little things that make a big difference.
Yeah, totally. Uh, and I am a bit of a foodie myself, and I think that gratitude makes life delicious.
It
Uh,
does. Absolutely.
and it's a way of living life in a delicious way somehow, because a simple experience can be turned into something delicious, and that you enjoy, like you enjoy the food that you eat, I think.
You savor it even more when you pay attention
Exactly,
to the small things.
exactly. So were you grateful, and were you practicing gratitude from the beginning, or did you have an experience that helped you discover gratitude within yourself?
You know, while growing up, gratitude was something that was always said in prayer. So I think I've always had some of it, but I think through the years as I've grown as a person, I think I've become even more grateful. And I believe that there's people who come into our lives who make a huge difference. And I have a friend who I actually met through Facebook who introduced me to a company called Send Out Cards. And just watching and learning about how he approaches gratitude in his life. And I think you might want to interview him actually for your show,
Thank you.
is that it's amazing to just take note of people and give that attention to one person and let them hear what you see about them in the world, and picking out all these pieces of how they function, so that, you know, on social media, there's all these posts, but people wonder, is anybody paying attention? Is anybody really see me? And one of the things that I've noticed is that I'll have messages once in a while that, you know, Deb, I was having a bad day, so I went to YouTube to watch some of your videos, or I turned on your podcast because I needed some inspiration. And when you hear that, it's like, wow, they are paying attention, you know? And then I don't know if you've ever seen the movie, it's with Mel Gibson. It's, I think, is it What Women Want? And there's this secretary or this girl, and he gets to hear her thoughts. And as he's walking past her, she's like, I wonder if anybody even notices that I'm here. And I
Yeah,
think what that just stems to is people want to be valued and appreciated. And I think through the years, I have grown and developed, you know, that through, you know, books like this, the 365 thank yous, being introduced to my friend Steve, who shared different ways of being grateful. And I think when we fall into the busyness of life, we can lose being grateful. And it's almost like you go into a downward spiral, and it takes friends in our lives or people to say, what's going on for you? That's when they really notice. But they don't always notice that, you know what, you stopped being grateful. And when people stop being grateful, their whole mood shifts, their whole approach to life changes. And I think they get caught in a trap in cynicism and pessimism. But as soon as they get into a place of shifting, they can shift so quickly, because it's like that, they have that wire, that pathway in their brain, that it's like, oh my gosh, I remember what it felt like to be grateful. This is why I need to be in this state. So we need to do this regularly. It's just like when Zig Ziglar has a quote, and I have to forgive me, I can't remember, but it's about, you know, I think it's motivation is something that we need daily.
yeah,
And that's
yeah.
why we bathe every day, you know? So it's the same thing with gratitude. We need it daily to help us keep a focus on where we want to go, how we want to interact, how we want to show up in the world and connect with other people.
Exactly. What you said about appreciating each other reminded me of an experience that I had just a few days ago. Um, the presenter of a TEDx event here in Cluj-Napoca received some kind of an award, but it was like honorary, not for being amazing or something like that. It was because he was a presenter, and they wanted to show their gratitude for him doing that. And I've been there, and he was an amazing presenter. Like, he was very entertaining. He connected with the public. He was fun. He was really great, and I didn't get to tell him this until now. And after I seen the post with the prize that he put on Facebook, I also commented on it and told him all of this, that he was great, he was entertaining, and everything. And he said that I made his day by doing this. And I was thinking about the fact that most probably, even though I'm thinking that many people went to him one way or another and told him how great he was, but after writing it and receiving his response, I was like, oh my God, maybe there were just a few people, or maybe no one actually did that. And I really felt great when I was there, and I really felt grateful for his entertaining style and for being there. And for me, expressing this was very, very natural. But I'm thinking that like with what I'm doing and what you're doing with the podcast, if we know this, that it gets to people, and that what we are doing is actually appreciated for us, is something amazing. And not many people do this, actually.
It is surprising. And one of the things that I was thinking about, as you just said, that you weren't sure if other people heard about it or had expressed their gratitude, is the biggest thing is he hasn't heard it from you. You know, people are like, true. He's heard it from so many people, but they haven't heard it from you. And the way you express gratitude is going to be different than how other people express gratitude. And I just want to touch on what you said, because as a speaker myself, there's been times I've presented and there might be 2 people who've come up, or maybe up to 5. And then I'll be like, I wonder, did I bomb it? Did it not go well?
Exactly. You know? Yeah.
And, you know, I was speaking with someone and they said, if you touched one person's life, and they might be introverted or extrovert, like if they're introverted, they're not going to come and tell you. They might send you, you know, a card later, but many times they won't say anything at all. Or they might tell somebody at their dinner table about how great they thought you were, but they might not come and tell you. But if you go in there, when you go to speak to hundreds of people, and you think that whatever my message is, and I've impacted one person, it's made a difference, because that one person, it's going to ripple through how they interact with other people throughout their day, because they had a positive experience.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And it's something really good to keep in mind always.
Absolutely.
So do you have a specific experience that from your own life, or a story or something about gratitude that inspires you?
You know, I think sometimes I can even inspire myself. And this is not to think that I'm boastful or brag, but when we try to go after our personal best and we have a self-limiting belief and think that we can't accomplish something, we can surprise ourselves. And several years ago, I had told someone, you know, I want to be a motivational speaker. And it's more than that. I want to help people transform their lives. So I got into coaching and helping people. And, you know, they're like, you can't motivate anybody. And I was like, what? I took it so personally. I said, what are you talking about? And I used that as fuel to move forward, because I was like, part of me was like, I'll show you, and the other part of me is like trying to understand, what do you mean I can't motivate people? And it's not. And now after I published, because I went and published a book, and I went to that person and I said, look what I've done. And they wanted to buy the book. I was giving it to them as a gift, and they're like, no, I'm buying this book. But I never did share with them how that comment really pushed me to really focus on what I wanted to do. And it wasn't just because, you can't motivate. And I learned that I really cannot. When she was talking about motivation, she was talking about making someone do something. And it took me a while to figure out what she meant. It didn't mean that I couldn't motivate people. I can't make them do something. But what I do know is I can light a spark inside of them that lights them up, that helps them move toward where they want to be. It's like goal setting. I was working with an individual once, and they said, Deb, just set the goal for me. Setting the goal for you doesn't get you excited about the goal. It's like, Deb told me I had to do this. Deb told me this, and then all of a sudden you become resentful. You're not going after it. So you need to ignite that internal flame within the person by seeing in them what they're capable of and sharing with them about what you see and helping them discover what goals they want for themselves. And when you do that, they get ignited. They get excited about their life. They're passionate and they go after it. It's not because I told them so. So it took me time to shift. And even though at that time I was so frustrated, I am very grateful for that experience, because I wouldn't have went to a place of, I'm going to publish this book. Not only that, I have a second book. And as I was talking with you earlier, I have a third book coming out this fall.
Wow.
And it's because of that experience alone that it has propelled me. And then I've done other things since then. I've connected with people like Jack Canfield and, John Lee Dumas, and just, Debra Poneman. And I was like, if I wasn't inspired to do and go more, I wouldn't see what I was capable of. Because I think a lot of times we limit ourselves because we see ourselves of what we're capable of right now. And truly, when you push out of that comfort zone, and I like to call it into the skin that you're meant to be in, you actually will amaze yourself for what you can accomplish even in a short period of time.
That's really, really good. And how I define what you just said is inspiration.
Yes,
it's something that gets sparked from within and drives people to action, and it's from themselves that the action comes, but the inspiration, it can be from outside, and it lights up something inside of them. This is how I feel this works.
yes. Yeah.
So I know that you're doing a podcast, you're writing books, you're doing a lot of work. So do you feel that gratitude has helped you in your business and in growing what you're doing right now?
Absolutely. When I think of gratitude, and I think of the quote that we shared earlier with Oprah's quote, and the grateful heart, is a magnet for miracles. I think that everything that I'm doing is because I take time to be grateful. The opportunities that come to me are because I am paying attention and thanking others for their impact, because my success is not because I'm alone in that success. There's people like you having me on the podcast, and I'm so excited to be on your podcast and honored.
Thank you.
Because all these people have contributed. They're all little messengers in my life to help me get to the next level. And I can't do it without all these people that I surround myself with. they actually build me. And I hope in turn am building many other people through the Millionaire Woman Show podcast and the books that I write, and helping everybody around me. As I lift, I want to lift them with me, because there's no sense in being lonely at the top, right? All of these people contribute to our success. And I think we need to really pay attention and take time to acknowledge what we're grateful for, and those people, and be really specific. I used to hand out gratitude rocks to people that I was working with, and there'd be a little note, and the rock had a little word on it. Whatever I thought, it might have said wisdom, it might have said faith, it might have said hope. When, some people take for granted it's just a rock. But I had people keeping them on their desk, or the note pasted on their desk wherever they were, or they kept it in their pocket to remind them of how special they actually were. So these little things that we take to acknowledge turn out to be big things, because when you do things for other people and you recognize them for who they are, you build loyalty. You build a connection that they're going to want to help you even more in your times of need. And people need to build those connections early, so when you do need them, you're not alone. People will be there for you when you need it, just as you will be for them.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And one of the most important things in life that we can be grateful for are the people in our lives. And I had an interview that I just posted a few days ago with Jeff McDonald, and he said something about he's from Australia, and he took a trip to Europe. He used to be an architect, and he had one camera that he took photos of buildings, and he thought that that's why he went there. And he had another camera that he used for taking pictures, like fast pictures and pictures of people and stuff like that. And when he got back home, when he looked at the pictures, the ones with people that he met there that brought emotions and that reminded him of how it was there, turned out to be a much bigger source of gratitude than the ones that he did with the buildings and everything. So yeah. People and relationships are really important for us as humans.
Well, we're emotional beings, so we have that emotional connection.
Exactly. So if you could go back in time, Debra, what would you tell your younger self about gratitude?
This is an excellent question. I think to go back in time is to tell my younger self that tough times don't last. And if you can look for the lesson in those tough times and be able to walk away saying, thank you for the experience, whether it be good or bad, it was there to teach us something, and also to be kinder to ourselves. We want everything to be perfect. We want nobody to see that we have flaws, but we need to be real. We need for people to see that there's that vulnerable side, that we have come from, growing from these situations and really being able to recognize what our strengths are and to be able to leverage those strengths so that we can make an impact and add the value to the world. But not only that, to appreciate others around us. And don't wait till someone passes away to go, to a funeral, to share with other people how great they were in your life. You need to be able to tell people face to face, because people do wonder, do I matter? Did I make a difference? And when they're dead, they can't hear that. And what better way is to share it with people while you're face to face, like the teachers, like our friends. I've sent gratitude letters to my family, to really stop and pay attention to how they have made a significant impact And it might be just words of encouragement. It might be that when someone has a bad day, you say, let's go out for supper. Get out of your space. Because you know that when you get out of your space, things change, shift the environment. So help others shift their environment and they don't even know what you're doing, right? But it's about being there for people and also to do it daily. Because when you can do that, when the tough situations come up, you can be more resilient and move through them with ease.
Totally. I love this. And I love that you mentioned doing this daily, because what I think is that gratitude, one, of course, makes life delicious, which is awesome. But other than that, gratitude can be a tool for when things aren't going the best in our lives. Like if we cultivate an attitude of gratitude, and we have this habit of being grateful as much as possible when it's hard and when things are seem to fall and everything seems to go backwards. It's when you need it the most, and when it's hardest to get to the feeling of gratitude. But once you use it constantly, it becomes much easier. An example comes to mind. A few weeks ago, I've posted an interview with Joshua Friedman. He's the CEO of 6 Seconds. I think is the largest organization teaching emotional intelligence in the world. And he told us a story about how he went to the Today Show, I think. So it was a really big show, and right before, even though he's not usually nervous when it comes to speaking in public or going on TV, he got really, really nervous. And he said that the fact that he was practicing gratitude constantly helped him shift the perspective that he had in that moment, and he shifted it to gratitude. And instead of being really unsure and anxious and things like that, he was really grateful to be there, and the message that he was able to send over to the world was much more positive and much more beautiful. Yeah. So that's what I wanted to add to what you said. So all right, you mentioned a few people, and the idea that people are important for us when it comes to gratitude. Do you have a few people that you want to mention that you're grateful for?
Sure. First of all, I'm grateful for being here and being able to, and technology for being able to connect with you in a different part of the world, different time zone. So I'm really grateful for that, because this is a very special topic and dear to my heart. Like I said, Jack Canfield, Debra Poneman, Colin Sprake is a mentor of mine as well. Parents, siblings, and my friends and family, they have all helped shape who I am today. And, even in our most difficult conversations that we have with people, I've learned to even be grateful for those, because even though it's another person's perspective, it takes a lot of courage for people to be vulnerable, to be able to share their opinions or share their observations. And even in the toughest of circumstances, we could walk away and recognize that people are entitled to that opinion and still be grateful for those things. And knowing that we were able to move through it with grace and saying, thank you for the feedback. I can still choose whether or not I'm going to accept it. I'm going to choose whether or not it's going to ruin my day or not. Or I can just say, thank you. Thank you for being able to share what you needed to share. So I think the people around me and my listeners on the show, the people who read my books, I wouldn't be doing all of what I'm doing without them, because they inspire me. They just amazing people have come into my life, and I am so grateful. But every listener, every reader of the books, the articles that I put out, I am grateful for all of them, because they enrich my life by for me to go forward and do the work that I'm doing.
That's wonderful. Uh, a long list, I'm sure. So, Deborah, what I also wanted to ask you about, I know that you mentioned sending gratitude letters. What else do you do to keep grateful consistently?
I have a gratitude journal where I write down at least 3 to 5 things that I'm grateful for every day. And by doing that, I can go back and see what I've been grateful for. Some days have the same thing. And if a day's off, I might be, I'm thankful for breathing. I'm thankful I got up this morning, or, and then when I go to bed, I think about my day and just self-reflect and think about all the things I'm grateful for. But gratitude to me can show up at any time of day. It doesn't have to just be at night when I write down what I'm grateful for, or when I wake up in the morning and just touch my feet over my bed and I'm like, oh, good day. Here we go. Right? Because I think we need to be mindful and, take note of being grateful at every moment. From the morning, like I don't drink coffee, but, from the moment I take a sip of my morning tea or have breakfast, my taste buds are telling, you're seizing that life, that deliciousness, right? So anytime and it might not be consciously you're thinking about it this moment, it might be a little bit a while, but that was so good. Or I had 5 minutes of peace to myself, I'm a busy mom. So when you have that 5 minutes to yourself, that's what you can be grateful for. And there can be random moments where my teenager will have a song on the radio and suddenly start dancing with me in the kitchen, and I'll be, we're having a dance party, but it's being able to stop and recognize those little things. And I think what happened is when I started writing, these thank you letters to people in my lives, or people who've been on my podcast, or people who've endorsed my books, or, I started being grateful for more things. So then you'd stop and notice the little things around you. And I think when you get into that practice, even though it can be a rough start for some people, as in the book, the one I was sharing with you, he had a really tough time. People saw him as this grumpy guy, but you can shift that whole personality by stopping, and you can learn to be grateful. People aren't just born grateful. You learn to be grateful. You make it a part of who you are every day, that you can stop and take notice of all these things in your life.
Yeah, I totally agree. Some people seem to be born grateful. I'm not one of them. I'm sure you also learned to be grateful also. And I think this is something that it's important to be learned. It's a way of seeing life, and is fundamental for us as humans. You mentioned something about the book that is coming out soon.
In September. It's called Let's Be Curious: How to Ask the Right Questions, Get Better Answers to Make the Best Decision.
Nice.
And it's at www.letsbecurious.ca. And it's coming out in September. I really believe it's going to be a game changer for many people. And it's not a very philosophical about asking questions. It's about asking questions practically in an everyday situation to help people move through difficult conversations. Maybe they are making a big decision in their life and they don't know where to go. It's more than making the pros and cons list, but it's really thinking about how we make decisions how our emotions impact how we make those decisions, because we are driven by emotions, and our thoughts and feelings will drive us to what actions we take. But in the process, being able to recognize that asking questions is one of the most powerful things in the world that we can be doing to shift us to where we want to be, and being very intentional with the actions that we take.
Yeah, I think questions are really very, very, very strong, because even in coaching, as I know, it's much better to ask good questions rather than give good answers for the situation, right?
Yeah.
It's the
Well,
most
people
helpful.
don't want to be told what to do, right? They
Yeah,
want to be asked. They want to know that you're taking interest in them as a person.
exactly,
So
exactly. All right. Can you hear me?
I can.
All right. So we're nearing the end of our discussion today. Where can people find you, Debra? Where can people see your work or get in contact with you?
Okay, so you can go to my website at www.debrakasowski.com. So that's DebraKasowski.com. I am on social media, so come and find me on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and I would love to hear about how our conversation today on the Gratitude Podcast has influenced your life. And you can email me too at Debra@debrakasowski.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much for being here with us, Debra, and for sharing from your experience and from your own life stories. Thank you.
You're very welcome. It was an honor to be here.
Thank you.